Okay, I think I'm okay. DJ's in, Bill's in, Mike's in. Yeah.
Just saying everyone's declined.
We have a path forward to either change it,
Say that again.
fix it, we
Is that
can
what
delay, or do we need to press ahead somehow because this is
Yeah,
beyond
are
our.
you able to do anything in Zoom? Are you doing anything? Can you
I'm
raise
not,
hand?
I don't see myself here. If I raise my hand, I don't know where it's raising. Oh, it doesn't, I'm watching, but I'm not participating. Audios.
Go ahead and minimize it.
This?
Yep. I just want to see what. Okay, it's weird.
Was,
Connected next to you, both sides.
yeah, did I do something?
I don't think you did.
Signing in wrong.
Oh,
Um,
see, because you're checked green. That means you're signed in. But here, do that again. Hit sign. Try that code again. Or you, yep.
I don't usually have this page. This
Yeah.
is a different page.
Hit. Well,
Uh,
maybe close and reopen it.
can just leave and
Yeah.
come back.
Yep.
Okay.
And then just open Zoom again.
And join a meeting, correct?
Join a meeting, correct?
And then don't connect to audio.
No, leave that unchecked.
Leave
Just
that
go ahead and
unchecked.
yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that we want to connect. That's want to connect it. Yeah. Oh, you guys leave that on.
We use this audio.
Okay. Oh, here, hold up. Do that again. Hold up. 8,
Okay.
1, 2, 5. Just you can continue typing.
Yeah, I went to 5, 1, 9, 2, 56, 76. And this, and it again was letting me in, I thought, just isn't showing me.
What's that?
My camera.
Yeah.
So I'm going to tell him.
The camera on? Ooh,
Could be.
I don't remember seeing that. Waiting for the host to start the webinar.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we're going to give it one more time as a restart. If that doesn't work, we're
Seen
just
this
going to go
page.
without Zoom
That's
tonight.
okay.
So
It's,
sorry for the complications.
Sign in,
Yeah,
or
just
just
that sign in. That should jump you in. Oh, that's
so
weird.
that's
Is
this
there anything
page.
they need to do on the restart?
Oh, that's
Um,
hit the 3 dots. Yeah, something's going on. Okay, just close that.
close the whole thing, or
Nope, just this box. That says leave webinar. There it goes. Now it should be. There you go. And expand it.
Recording in progress.
usually we'd be able to see everybody because it would be coming, showing the camera. Now it's just whatever the big camera is, I guess, up there. least we're all together.
Okay, okay. You click join. And shut down.
Yeah. I had it delivered to the library, so should be at the library. Yeah. A bunch of books. I'm trying to think who the sponsor was.
Turned off the video and the audio.
Perfect.
Yes, in that
Okay.
corner, toward the front in the corner. Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, lots of books, so. Hey, this is looking good, guys. Looking good. What,
That looking
what
normal?
did we do?
I don't know.
Are things looking normal now? Looks like maybe we
Whoever
figured
just
it
did
out.
something, good job. I am now on. How are we
6,
doing?
9.
Thumbs up, thumbs up. We've got a thumbs down. There you go. Now, I think we're in good shape. Everybody on this end in good shape? All thumbs up? All thumbs up. There you go. I think that'll solve your problem. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. You ready to get ready?
We're all good?
Are we all good?
Okay.
Chris, are we ready to get started?
I think we are. Looks like we're back up and running. So
Okay, I apologize, everybody. Thank you for your patience through our technical difficulties. Technology is great until it's not. This is December 8th, 2025. If you would, join with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I'll deliver our invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
For all. The invocation this evening is by me. And this is a little longer, so if you want to sit down at any point, please feel free to do that. Over the last 8 years, I've offered almost 30 invocations as part of this esteemed body, but this is my last invocation that I'll offer as mayor. Before I do give our invocation tonight, I hope that you'll indulge me for just a little bit while I provide a little background information on this tradition of having invocations at the beginning of our city council meetings. As you might or might not know, many cities and governmental bodies have abandoned the practice of having a prayer or invocation at the beginning of each meeting. Billings has not followed that path, and I believe that our invocations are still a very valuable tradition for many reasons. For example, they remind us that our city has a long history that goes back 143 years, and that the people seated here tonight are not the only ones that have sat in these seats. Hundreds came before us, and hundreds more will come after us. By focusing at the very beginning of our meeting on religious tenets, fundamental principles, or just interesting thoughts, we are reminded that in the midst of our day-to-day work on this council, that we should never lose sight of the people that we serve and the enduring universal principles that we all share and bind our community together. And again, feel free to sit down anytime. These principles are bigger than any one of us, and they should keep us humble. But as I said, many communities have abandoned this tradition because they believe that invocations in a government setting can become instruments of division and fodder for lawyers who want to challenge their constitutionality on grounds that they are a form of religious indoctrination. Those concerns can be well-founded, which is why our city has always tried to make it clear that these invocations are offered purely by the individual council members themselves, if they choose to offer an invocation at all, and they may not, and not on behalf of the city itself. Some invocations are overtly religious, many are not. The content is likely to be as varied as the 11 people who sit up here each week. The audience is free to stand, sit, bow their head, not bow their head, or participate or not participate in any way that they would like. This is important because our city is made up of 125,000 people of all different faiths and fundamental belief systems. No government should dictate how the governed believe, either explicitly or by veiled means, including long-held traditions that reinforce only one religious viewpoint. As for myself, over the last 8 years, I have tried to follow the principle that a mayor should not that a mayor should try to represent as broad of a spectrum of his or her constituents as possible. Thus, over these 8 years, I've offered almost 30 different invocations, and typically they have not reflected a particular sectarian viewpoint. I also read the first Hindu invocation in recognition and honor of the Hindu members of our community, whose presence would otherwise be overlooked because none of us are Hindu. But tonight is my last opportunity to offer an invocation, and so I would like to do so not as the mayor, but as one member of this community who has tried to discern the will of Jesus Christ while trying to serve his fellow community members over the last 8 years. You're welcome to join with me now in my invocation or not. Dear Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, I thank you for giving me this honor over all these years. I pray that if I have brought dishonor on the cause to the name of Christ in any way, that you would rectify those errors and make straight our path going forward. I thank you for sustaining me, my family, friends, church, and most of all, our community over the last 8 years. And I pray that you would hold our community in your hands and protect us from forces beyond our control, and especially from our own selfish nature. Watch over those city workers who watch over us every day, and bless these city council members and their families who give so much of their time, emotional energy, and financial treasure to serve their constituents. Thank you again, Lord, for this honor and your faithfulness over these 8 years. In the name of my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, I pray these things. Amen. Thank you all. And with that, Tony, you are on for wherever you are. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Shaw, Gulick, Neese,
Present.
Owen, Rogers,
Here.
Kennedy, Aspenleiter, Tidswell, Boyette, Rupsis, Mayor Cole.
Here. We have the minutes from the 24th. Those are still pending. We'll get to those at our next meeting in 1 week from now. Do we have any council courtesies this evening? Any council courtesies? Seeing none. Proclamations, we don't have any. We have one next week. Council reports. Any reports from organizations that serve on behalf of the council? Councilmember Shaw.
I apologize. I should have added this during courtesies, but for everybody here, there's an open house this Thursday at City Hall. So if you want to come see the rest of the floors, please come back between 4 to 6. There'll be some food and some swag.
Very good. Thank you. And we'll ask the city administrator to expand on that in just a minute. Speaking of which, if there aren't any other council courtesies, Chris, it's all yours.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. Got a few things. First of all, thank you for your patience and indulging us with a little different setup. This room is being used for a couple of different reasons. Last week and this week, we're hosting Leadership Billings. We've hosted some other meetings, and rather than having our facilities staff take down, tear down, move in and out, I've said it'll be okay. We can choose to sit at a table or chairs here. So thanks for helping us with that. As was mentioned, I'll reiterate, yes, this Thursday, December the 11th, from 4 to 6 p.m., please, any and all in our community, come and see this fantastic facility of which you've invested in. Primarily, we're certainly going to give tours for people to see. The mayor and I are going to say a few words to get things kicked off at 4. But some things I really want to focus on and remind folks as time changes is just how important it was some 7 years ago when we looked at the need to really lean into improving our public safety systems, that we literally didn't have any space to put additional resources. So we have added some 70 personnel across the system, thanks to our citizens, those police officers, those prosecutors, those victim witness advocates. That additional judge would not have had a place to go in the old city hall. So they will see that all of second floor and fourth floor are essentially, I guess a minor exception on the second floor, are dedicated to the criminal justice system. They'll also see up here on the 5th floor that all things related to development, whether you've got just an idea for your land to develop it, all the way through to the occupancy permit, all those services are provided up here on the 5th floor. So whereas in the past you needed to go to several different buildings throughout the city, that is all happening up here for your convenience as a citizen. And frankly, for us who are working in that space, we can work together and solve problems now shoulder to shoulder instead of scheduling meetings and things of that nature. So there'll be more that we will talk about, but those will be a couple of highlights. And please come back 4 to 6 this Thursday and see this space that's working out so well. And my last comment will be, we did sell the old City Hall. We sold a couple of vacant lots, and we sold the retail space at Park 1, so that all that property now is back on the tax roll, back in private hands, and can be put to good use for the community. So that's Thursday. Also a reminder that a week from tonight, as has been something we've done for many, many years, in the month of December, we got 2 back-to-back regular meetings tonight and next Monday, and then we will be off for the remainder of the year. So next Monday night, same time, same place, we'll be having a regular meeting here on the 15th, not a work session. And then lastly, there was no ex parte communication to share, and that's all that I have, Mayor and Council.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. We'll now move on then to our opportunity for public comment. This is on actually all items 1, 2, and 3 tonight, because there will not be a public hearing later on any of those items. So item 1 is our consent agenda and all the subparts. Item 2 is our technology plan and, the TIF financing project for Frontier Law Firm. And then 3 is our capital improvement plan, the CIP. So we'll open it up for public comment. Our pattern here is to ask people to keep their comments to 3 minutes. Tell us your name and address if you're comfortable doing the latter, and help yourself. We ask that you speak loudly into the microphone so that everybody watching can pick it up, and people in the back as well. So welcome.
Hi. Can you hear me? Am I on?
Yes.
Okay, I'll speak up. I'm Myrna Lestuski with Beartooth RC&D, and here with me are my colleagues Nan Knight, Finance Director and Brownfields Coordinator, and Brad Ike, our Food and Ag Director. Mayor Cole, council members, thank you for our continued partnership. Beartooth RC&D has served Yellowstone County since 1969, connecting communities and businesses with the resource they needed to grow. In 2025, we helped secure over $846,000 in funding for Billings projects, supported 37 local businesses and nonprofits, and assisted in creating or retaining nearly 100 jobs. I want to just quickly mention a few of the programs that we offered that help make Billings stronger. Our revolving loan fund provides flexible financing when traditional lending isn't available. We have 9 active loans in Billings and 16 total across Yellowstone County. Beartooth's loan investment in Billings totals over $759,000, leveraging more than $5 million in business investment and 86 jobs created and retained. Across Yellowstone County, Beartooth's loan investment stands at $1.3 million, leveraging over $6.8 million in total investment. Another program is the Food and Ag Development Center. It strengthens Billings' food supply chain with funding and technical expertise. This year, we provided 262 hours of targeted technical assistance to 23 food and ag clients within Billings city limits. Our support focused on securing funding and capacity building training, including 3 HACCP food safety trainings, 2 Lean 101 trainings, and 1 Good Manufacturing Practices training. We also have a Brownfields program that manages $1.46 million to clean up and redevelop neglected properties. We are coming out with a site selector tool, and you did have a little handout on that in your packets that you can take a look at, to better market Billings assets to attract new investment. And our federally recognized CEDS document, our Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, ensures that Billings priorities align with federal funding opportunities. When we support businesses across our 5-county region, it creates demand for services in Billings. That ripple effect strengthens the city's economy and builds resilience. Your annual MOU contribution unlocks $70,000 in federal funds and guarantees Billings a seat at the table. Beartooth RC&D is more than a funding partner. We're your strategic ally in building prosperity. And our staff is here for the entire evening. So if you have questions later or you'd like to speak with us after the meeting, we'd love that. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Myrna. Other public comment, please come forward.
My name is Mark Severe. I'm speaking in support of the keeping the Yellow Jacket Trail and the Stagecoach Trail and the development of trails in the CIP. In 46 years of running Dovetail Designs, I have discovered that the most expensive thing you can buy is a cheap tool. When you pay for it and you pay the price, it pays off incrementally for many, many years. The trail that we have currently going to the top of the airport hill is an accident waiting to happen. I've walked it many times, I've ridden my bike on it many times, and it's a very dangerous trail. We need a walking path developed from the valley to the top of the hill. Stagecoach Trail is in development now. We need to keep going with that. These are things that make our city better, and it will be noticed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Cole and City Council members, my name is Jim Nichols, and I reside at 239 Beverly Hill Boulevard. I am in favor of keeping the staff recommended trails included as stated in the CIP for the following reasons. Number one, we are competing with other cities for a qualified workforce in education, in enforcement, in health, just to name a few. These workers choose cities based on city livability, and connected trails are consistently ranked among the top amenities. Number two, removing trails like the Yellow Jacket Trail from the CIP undermine the community-driven planning process and signal unpredictability to businesses, nonprofits, and grant funders. Number three, removing trails such as the Yellow Jacket Trail from the CIP would virtually eliminate being awarded any future grant funding. And by the way, the Yellow Jacket Trail has a completed privately funded feasibility study, which I'm sure you're aware. Keeping trails in the CIP reaffirms that the Billings City Council is committed to quality of life amenities that matter to today's workforce and families living in Billings, both now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further comments this evening?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Steve Chandra. I live at 1109 North 31st Street. I provided public comment a few weeks back when the City Council first began considering the CIP. And I'm back before you tonight to express my appreciation for your vote to retain the Yellow Jacket Trail as part of the 5-year CIP, recognizing that this project is currently unfunded and is placed at the very end of the 5-year CIP. Retaining this project in the CIP accomplishes 3 important things. First, it acknowledges that a safe, accessible, shared use path connecting downtown to the airport and the rims is desirable, and it recognizes that the current trail is inadequate and not safe for families with children, cyclists, people with mobility issues. Number 2, it acknowledges that there's broad community support from individuals and organizations. As indicated by the many letters of support that the City Council has received, including support from Montana State University Billings, Intermountain Health St. Vincent Regional Hospital, Rocky Mountain College, the East Billings Urban Renewal District, and the Pioneer Park Task Force, to name just a few. Number 3, it acknowledges that individuals and organizations in the community have stepped forward and funded an initial feasibility study utilizing private dollars, and that the council greatly appreciates and encourages such private-public partnerships. Thanks for your thoughtful consideration this evening.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Christy Drake, 2950 Walden Place. There is something fundamental to responsible governance, and that is possibility. Billings CIP allows our community to grow wisely and intentionally. It reflects input from departments, boards, and most importantly, the public. The Planning Department's chapter of the CIP works exactly this way. It does not obligate funding. It identifies potential funding sources, competitive grants, viable pathways for making projects possible, and it's not guaranteed, it's not locked in, it's not promised, and it's not on a whim. Our city's planning department is comprised of professionals who are experts in their fields, just like each of you in your own fields. Projects in the Planning Department's chapter of the CIP, such as the Yellow Jacket Trail, are not obligated projects. They remain possible only if they stay right where they are in the CIP. If we take the Heights downtown connection as an example, we know that people already want to travel by foot or bike there. The informal trail on the south side of the guardrail on North 27th Street is consistently used by university students, hospital staff, exercisers, and even travelers hauling their luggage through the gravel, and they have no safe alternative. A study conducted by the Planning Department in 2025 documented 151 people using this dangerous alignment, proof that residents are actively trying to move between the Heights and the downtown without a vehicle. They deserve a safe and dignified way to do it. The planning CIP staff gives staff room to explore funding options, to apply for grants, to be innovative, and to respond when opportunities appear. Removing future trail projects from the current CIP does not just move them to an out year, it removes them from the realm of possible. And I can't imagine anyone on this council wanting to be remembered as the body that voted to limit Billings' own future. The proposal to move the trails out to some far-off year is not just a neutral adjustment. It reduces the city's ability to pursue funding and sends a message that the city is not listening to its residents. You've all heard again and again that your constituents want more trails and safer routes. The CIP is working exactly as it should. It identifies potential funding, not commitments. Keeping a project in the plan does not cost money. It simply keeps the door open, removing it, slams it shut. And I'm out of time. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Brandon Schmidt, Cemetery Supervisor for the city. About a month on the consent agenda tonight is accepting a donation for Partners for Parks to help fund the Patriot Run that we had earlier or last month. So we had our third annual Patriot Run in partnership with Partners for Parks. That fund helps people inter their loved ones in the veteran section at the cemetery, and as well as pay for ongoing maintenance in the veteran section, such as planting flowers along Central there and things like that. We had 120 participants, many of whom donated beyond the race entry fee, so we're very appreciative of that. I just wanted to take a minute to recognize some of our more, the folks who donated a little more. Shields was a great partner, Phillips 66. Our sponsors, who've been with us all 3 years. Veteran-owned gym, Alternative Athletics, Billings Monument, Meadow Green Power Equipment, and Mayor Bill Cole and his wife Ann. So, like I said, I just want to take a minute to thank those and recognize them, as well as if you weren't able to make the race, if you'd like a nice T-shirt, we got them in all sizes. Sell them for $20 at the cemetery. Just give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Brandon. We know that's an important project for you as a 28-year Navy veteran.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Paul Clark. I live on the south side Triangle. I would like to thank all of you for, putting in the year that I've been watching you up front. This last conversation did strike a nerve with me. As a young boy, I would be on my bicycle and I would try to climb 27th Street, which Highway 3, I believe it is, with your bike and 4 other buddies on that busy road. We're talking 40 years ago. It still looks the same. We haven't done anything to it. Help us, help these people, the Yellowstone, Stagecoach, Yellow Jacket, and a few others that I can't remember. They're getting together. They're trying to get something wider. If you want to, make it a non-motorized trail. We're talking horses with a trolley. Maybe they can come from the airport down to town, make their way to South Park, stop at our future swimming pool, because I know I'll be in there. You guys did a lot of hard work for that, and I want to thank you for that. That was tough. I watched that for years, even before it got to the vote. So with that in mind, a $9 million pool looks nice. What does a $20 million pool look nice with the north trolley coming down into the South Park area? Kids get on, kids get off, some sightseers. It's a plus. What they're trying to get to us is a plus. But we've got to build that road, that connection for the joggers, the kids that run up and down. Heck, let's put a mule on it, with a trolley. Anyway, that's all I got. Love, balance, Merry Christmas. God bless.
Thank you. Further public comment? Is there any other public comment? No one's standing up. No one is coming forward. So we'll close the public comment period. Move on then to item number 1, our consent agenda. First, are there separations? Councilmember Aspenlider?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to separate agenda item 1N and 101. And my firm represents the applicant in N, and we are in the payables for 101.
Very good, thank you. Councilmember Ripsis, Councilmember Kennedy?
Thank you, Mayor. I need to recuse myself from 102. One of my close clients is a payee this week.
Very good. Councilmember Kennedy?
Mayor, I would like to segregate 1A, 21 through 27, which is the Police Advisory Commission. And I would also like to segregate 1E.
1E is the memorandum agreement with Beartooth RC&D. Gina, I'll defer to you. Although the 49 positions are numbered separately, I guess my inclination is we kind of need to pull that out as a package and then deal with them separately. I'm not familiar with separating out just one group. And then Mr. Kennedy could make his motion just as to those groups or that group of people, or?
Mayor, thank you for the question. I guess I would.
Or I don't care. Maybe it just makes sense to.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I think each appointment is a separate appointment.
Okay, very good. So items or appointments number 21 through 27, all of which deal with the Citizen Police Advisory Board. Okay, other separations. Oh, and yeah, and item 1E, the Beartooth RC&D MOU. Councilmember Neese.
I'd like to make a motion to.
Yeah, are there any other separations? Seeing none, go ahead.
like to make a motion to approve the items of the consent agenda as submitted, with the exception of the items moved for separation, which was 1N, 101, 102, 1A1, 1A1, 27 through 27, and 1E. 21 through 27, yes.
Okay, hopefully we got all those. Councilmember Rogers has the second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Neese.
Gina, I have a question for you. All right, now I got my papers all mixed up as I was doing this, but the, here we go. 1C is the cooperative purchase agreement with Axion. We had that presentation last week, and I'd asked some questions about it.
Councilmember Neese, could you just direct your voice into that
Sorry
microphone a
about
little
that.
bit closer?
Let me pull that a little closer. Is that any better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, Gina, I had, we had the, it's 1C, the cooperative purchase agreement with Axion Enterprise. We had a presentation, I think, a week or so ago. The, it indicates that the legal review was done on this agreement. Was that you, in your department? Was that you? You're aware of the legal review on this?
That's correct. One of the deputy city attorneys
Okay,
reviewed
great.
this agreement.
So one of the things that we're doing here is we're approving a contract that we know we don't have the funding for. We have funding for year 1 and 2, and we hope for funding in year 3 through 5 in some fashion, whether it's grants or some other things. I had asked a question during the work session whether or not, if we don't have funding, would there be any kind of penalty on that? So can you confirm that when they review this, there is no penalty on this agreement if for some reason we don't have the fund to continue it on? Or if there is a penalty, what that penalty would be?
Councilmember Neese, I'm actually going to defer to Captain Woolley. He's actually more familiar with the contract than I am, and as I said, I didn't review this myself. One of the deputies did, so I'm going to ask Captain Woolley to address that issue.
Okay, and then before he comes, can you just comment on the fact that we're approving a document binding the city for the $3 million plus for a term that we know we don't have funds secured yet? Can this council legally do that?
Mayor, Councilmember Neese, what I would say is when you say there's not funding, we would need to utilize other funding through our police department. So it's not as if the city doesn't have the funds to cover ultimately the contract if it were to change, but I think it's literally that the city doesn't have any funding to complete the contract. Curious what what Captain Woolley can share relative to the guarantee part of the contract.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Chris. I was asking the attorney for their legal opinion. Is it legal for the city to approve contracts where we don't have secured funding yet? Or are you saying that we would it's secured because we have general funds, if we had to, we would just reduce the police force to cover the contract?
Other cuts wouldn't, I'm assuming, unless what we hear from Captain Woolley is that some other cut or reduction would need to be made in the budget, that we would use that or reserves that we would need to come to the council at that time for that fiscal year and come to an agreement as to how we would fund it.
Okay.
Councilmember Neese, why don't we invite Captain Woolley forward to tell us more about funding sources and also perhaps the terms of the contract. Captain, welcome.
Yeah, I'm mainly concerned about the termination, if we have to terminate because there's not city funds, or what we'd have to do if there isn't city funds available to pay this contract. What would the police force have to do?
So we would either need to find those funds within the current budget from whether they're other equipment, other costs, or when you look into the piggyback portion of the contract, there is a clause in there, a section 3 that acts on just basically says if you don't have money for this contract, then we can pare it down. So remember, the contract is for software body cams. Great. So we could realistically, if we didn't have full amounts of money, which we should have at least 40-50% going into those out years, that we could pare it down to just body cams, not in cars, and we would give equipment back and stop the subscription.
Okay,
so we have
so we
several
could pare
options.
it down. If there's any penalty to pare that down?
Nope.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure we got on the record that that is the case, because my concern is I wouldn't do that personally. I would not enter a contract unless I knew I had funds And so if we're going to do that, then I'm okay with that. And I think this is a great opportunity for the police department. I want to approve this, but I'm concerned about having to go into a contract without the ability to either pare it down without penalty, or we didn't have funds. So thank you for answering that.
Understood. Thank you.
Very good. This is a discussion on the non-separated items. Councilmember Boyette.
Thank you, Mayor. We always need to recognize people who give us things. So we received a domestic violence grant to the police department. First Interstate Bank has given a grant to the fire department. Donations to the public library from Montana Arts for Senior Art, Brooklyn Public Library, and Friends of the Library. And the parks received some money from Partners for Parks. So I want to congratulate people who give us money. Great for them.
Keep it up, I would think. Further discussion on the non-separated items. I'll just comment, Council, on item 1K, annexation agreement with the Kramer family. This project is within the benefited area of Cottonwood Park, and so the annexation agreement does not address any negotiations about possible contribution for Cottonwood Park, which I continue to believe is inconsistent with the mandates of the Cottonwood Park Development Agreement. So I will still vote in favor of the non-separated agreements. I will not separate that just because we've had that discussion before, and I don't think I would prevail on that. But I just wanted to, for the record, continue just to be consistent. Further discussion on the non-separated items. Councilmember Neese.
Mayor, I have a question about that item, because I think you've brought this up multiple times, and it's, I think all you're looking for is they talk to the person who's coming in and they said no, and not so much that they have agreed to anything. You're not requiring someone to donate, but you're just saying, have you negotiated with them? Have you brought this up, and have they done it? Is that what you're kind of looking for?
That on that part of the agreement, yes, because that's a requirement of the agreement. The agreement goes beyond that, I think, in goodwill efforts to fund the park development more generally. So I wouldn't say that's the only requirement of that 20-plus page agreement, but on that particular element, yes.
Okay, and so thank you. Chris, do you know why? Because this has come up multiple times, and the mayor's recused himself. And if that's in the agreement, I'm sorry, Mayor, I have not read the agreement yet on that. But if that's the case, do you know why that's not being done as in that agreement?
So I can tell you, we did sit down, not with this one, I think the prior one that was in front of you, sat down and met with the representatives of the property and the development side, and the conversation was pretty direct relative to they would be open to a discussion if the city came up with some kind of a system that it would do, but literally negotiating piece one by one, it really was not it was good to hear from them, but that's where the discussion opened and ended.
Yeah, I think I understand that. You talked to it, that's great. Yep. But this one, again, it's not in the document saying they actually discussed it and they said no, or they said something similar to the other one. So that we can get an idea that this is actually being discussed with the developers who are coming into the city, so that we know exactly what they are telling us, so maybe we can develop a system. Is that something that you can ask your staff to maybe do when we see these annexations in that area, that they address that document that the mayor's talking about?
Yes.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion on the motion to approve the non-separated items? Okay, seeing none, if in favor of the motion for approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. First separated item is item 1A, appointments number 21 through 27 relating to the Citizen Police Advisory Board. Councilmember Kennedy, that was your separation, so I'll give it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. We received a letter from the chairwoman of the Citizens Police Advisory Board about putting people that have been on the Citizens Police Advisory Board back on. I feel that at this time, I would like to pull all of these names off, have it come back for a discussion if we're going to keep on putting the same people back on that commission. I think there's enough people that are taking the classes and the that we should start circulating new people on that Police Advisory Commission. So I would make a motion that we remove items 21 through 27 and put them on at our second work session in January and discuss, do we want new people on, or do you want to keep on appointing the same people? And all I'm asking for is to put it on our work session, our second one in January. That's my motion.
Okay, very good. So just the motion to delay until work session discussion. Councilmember Aspenlighter makes the second. Further discussion, you've already addressed your motion, I believe, but Councilmember Aspenlighter, your second. Discussion now on the motion. We'll start down here. Councilmember Shaw, Councilmember Gillick.
Yeah, I just have a question. We haven't had this commission for very long, so have these people been on for one term, 4 years? Is that the limit of how long some have been on? Most of our boards can do 2 terms up to 8 years.
Yeah, this of course expired the end of this year, and so we reestablished it.
Yes, that's right.
So this is a new board, and most of these were reappointments of people who were on the previous board. I believe Denise, Jordan Weber, Joe Stout, Gary Boyder are all coming over from the previous version of the board. And Michael Foose and Derek Grimmel would be new people. And then, of course, there is one application empty that we didn't get an application for. That'd be number 23. Carrie's letter, my recollection was the importance of, remember right, reappointing the people who are already there, not making a pitch for new people.
I'm just trying to understand the distinction of this board versus, yes, we had to re-up it. But if they've only been doing a term of 4 years, I guess I'm just confused as to why it's an issue for this board, but not other boards, for people to be on for 2 terms in a row.
Okay. If Councilmember Gullick, if it's okay, I can recommend Councilmember Rupsis and then back to Councilmember.
Just an extra bit of context. Of those 4 that are being reappointed, only 2 of them have been there for the full 4 years. Joe Stout and Denise Boggio were original members.
Yeah.
Carrie Boyder and Jordan Wember were newer members. Carrie, I believe, came in about 2.5 years ago or so, and Jordan is relatively new in the last year. So I don't think there's a whole lot of, just people sitting on this board forever and ever that we really need to be concerned about, just stagnation.
Okay, Councilmember Gullick.
Yes, I just noticed that there's no applications. What is the process? Is the process here any different than any other ones? And is there not interest, or is there, I think Councilmember Kennedy mentioned that there's some sort of training and more people who are coming on. I just would be interested in hearing a little bit more about that.
Yes, Councilmember Gullick, there is a training twice a year. You get about 30 to 36 people each in the fall and the spring. There's a lot of folks, and they do have an advisory meeting once or twice a year. And I would say it's time we had other people know that these openings are coming up and that given that opportunity. But I would like that full discussion at a work session so we can talk about it, because this is only re-upped for another 4 years. And so this would be a new board, and looking at it, it's not the same as every other board that's on here.
And if I can just answer the question, and Kevin Iflin also had his hand up there. Answer your question, is this the same requirements as any other board? Yes. But there is a resolution where we've identified certain skill sets for these board members, and it's always important to look at how applications match or don't line up with those skill sets. And then I think Councilmember Kennedy's probably referring to the Citizen Police Advisory or Citizens Police Academy, which is a great opportunity. Doesn't have anything to do with the Citizen Police Advisory Board technically, although it would be great training for somebody to participate in the police academy. But there's no requirement to doing that. Some people have done that, I'm sure, and some people have not. Kevin, what did you want to say?
You said exactly what I was going to say about the Citizen Police Academy. So
okay. Very good. Any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to delay appointment of item or positions 21 to 27 until the council has an opportunity to discuss the issue at a work session, presumably in January. If in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Voting in favor, council members Kennedy, Aspenleiter, Rogers, Tidswell, and Boyette, and Owen. Okay, if voting in opposition, oh, and also Nice. Okay, and if in opposition, say nay. Council members Shaw, Gulick, Cole, and Ripsis. So the motion passes 7-4. So staff, that'll be your job to find a spot on a future work session. Then item 1E, Councilmember Kennedy, that was also your separation, that memorandum of agreement with Beartooth Resource Conservation and Development Area, Inc.
Yes, I pulled this out to vote against it. So if someone wants to make a motion, that's fine. I will be voting against it. I do feel that with a tight budget, and especially next year, as we start looking at a real tight budget, we're going to have to look at all of these programs. So I will be voting no.
Very good. Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. I would make a motion that we approve item 1E, memorandum of agreement with Beartooth Resource Conservation and Development Area Incorporated.
Very good. Second by Councilmember Boyette. Would either of you like to speak to your motion? Councilmember Boyette.
I guess even though I go on this board every month or every 2 months, I was amazed at what happens for Yellowstone County and Billings. There's quite a bit of activity for our city and our county. So, and I think this is relatively a cheap $13,000. The county gave $37,000. My thought is, be honest with you, if we didn't prove it tonight, I would do it myself, pay for it. So I'm going to vote yes.
Very good. Any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, the motion is for approval of item 1E. If in favor, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Voting in opposition, Councilmember Kennedy and Aspenleiter. All other council members voting in favor. Motion passes 9-2. Then our next separated item is item 1N. Councilmember Aspenleiter will be recusing himself on this. Is there a motion? Councilmember Nice.
Mayor, I make a motion to approve item 1N and 1O1.
Is there a second, Councilmember Kennedy? Motion is to approve item 1N and 1O1. Correct?
Correct.
Is there any discussion? Then if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes. That leaves us one final item, 102, bills for November 10th. Councilmember Ripsis was going to recuse himself on that. Councilmember Gulick?
Yeah, I move to approve item 102. Second.
And second by Councilmember Nice. Any discussion? Okay, if in favor of the motion approval of 102, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. If opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously with the exception of Councilmember Ripsis, who did not vote. That concludes our item number 1, our consent agenda, and brings us to our regular agenda, item number 2. Tony, would you read item number 2, please?
Item number 2, tax increment financing assistance from the Downtown Urban Renewal TIF District for Frontier Law Firm for building facade improvements at 2923 Montana Avenue, up to $14,194.64. Downtown Billings Partnership Board recommends approval.
Mehmet, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mehmet Casey, Development Director with the Downtown Billings Partnership at 102 North 29th Street. And tonight I am here before you for a downtown Billings tax increment financing project presentation in regards to the property located on the corner of Montana Avenue and North 30th, or the address is 2923 Montana Avenue. I hope you guys can see all of that. Let's see, I was trying to maximize the screen here, but let's see. Okay, so a quick refresher on the facade incentive program. These are the three main points that are designed to be deliverables out of this project. One is obviously to attract new customers into the downtown area based on the efforts of the restoration of the facade buildings, or the facades of the buildings. Two is to stimulate new business and economic development. Three is to positively promote commercial space revitalization. The picture that you have there is not of the project. This is just a fun picture that is paired with the introduction or the explanation about the facade incentive. This is the Babcock building, showcasing what it used to look like after the historic brickwork was covered up at some point in time, and then it was restored back to what it looks like now today. But the building that we're talking about, this is a brief timeline of the previous tenants and occupants of the building, and we have started conversations with the current owners and the Western Heritage Center to connect and learn more about this building. There are archives and city directories and other details that they can dive into and learn more about it. But these, I realize also after compiling this and making this presentation, these are also available in one of the sheets that were provided in the staff memo as one of the attachments. There's a document that was pulled out of the program that was done a while ago in partnership between Downtown Billings and Western Heritage Center in designing these banners that you see along Montana Avenue, and the history, a little bit of history about each building. So it was neat and fun to explore the journey of that building and put out the timeline of what used to be there, who the owners were, what are some of the businesses and operations that were in that building. And then it continued a little bit to this second page, all the way paving the path to the current owners and the current occupants. So the second floor right now is occupied by the property owners, Frontier Law Firm. And I have representatives with me here today if you guys have further questions later on for them specifically. And on the first floor, a couple of tenants. One is an art gallery facing Montana Avenue, and then the other one opened just this Friday, past Friday, on Holiday Stroll, which is the Blueprint Montana tenant. And that's the one facing North 30th. This is the breakdown of the expenditures and eligibility of those, and the main items that we're focusing on are obviously all within the facade projects and the eligibility of the facade project. So we're looking at work involving the sidewalk and curb in front of the building. We're looking at doors, those garage door, there's a couple of them on the side that faces North 30th Street. And then we're looking at some lighting. You've got the total facade project cost there, and then you've got other improvements and investments that the property owners have done on the property, both internally and externally. But the green number is what you're looking at as the size of the grant in comparison to the facade project overall expenditure. And then a little bit about the project merits and what we're working with. So in the pictures here, and hopefully the squiggly arrows will make sense, the picture that says inspiration, this is kind of the idea of what it will look like. This is not the exact same building, although you might think it is the same building because it's also red brick against red brick. That was kind of a question that came at the partnership presentation, if it was the same building. So that's just an inspiration of what the building or the doors would look like. Currently, the doors are that maroonish, reddish color. They function just like a garage door. They open up all the way and down. So the idea is that these will be replaced with more energy efficient doors that look like garage doors, similar to the picture with the inspiration, but they function like, a double door, open and close type of door. They're better sealed that way and lockable, and they're still wide enough to be able to move in furniture in and out. And then they look aesthetically like the previous doors. Along that, there's also the pictures of the sidewalk and the curb repair. So there are several cracks and missing chunks of the curbs. There is an uneven side of the sidewalk that you see closest to the building that they're going to smooth out. And then the entrance into both of those garage doors are elevated. And they're working on creating a more smooth transition between the doors and the sidewalk so that they don't have to create a ramp for ADA accessibility, and that it all changes the level gradually into the door and out. So and the project merits obviously working with the guiding documents that this fits within the MCA and the urban renewal plan and the strategic priorities of downtown and the city's TIF policy. So Downtown Billings Partnership recommends the award not to exceed that amount, and then it will be a one disbursement in fiscal year 27, assuming the work will be completed in this current fiscal year that we're in, and to sign a development agreement. Traditionally, those development agreements are a lot less intense than your usual development agreements with larger projects, because obviously there are fewer items, fewer awards, fewer schedules of disbursements. But it still follows the same pattern. It's just a little bit shorter. A few things to remember: the facade program is a pre-approved program by City Council, but it does not have its own annual budget like you see in your SEPTED program and the signage program, where we allocate the same amount every year as long as there is enough demand to manage those programs. And funding is available within the downtown TIF forecast and budget. And one of the attachments in the staff memo was also the TIF forecast. So you can see that there's capacity for this. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Very good. Are there questions for Mehmet? Councilmember Ripsis.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, not a question for Mehmet. Chris, on a night when we're going to be contemplating hundreds of millions of dollars of capital projects, here we've got $15,000 on a facade improvement. Is this something that council should, in the future, maybe have a limit of anything under $25,000 should come through on the consent agenda instead of making Mehmet come up here and take all this kind of stuff? I love the presentation. I support the project, obviously. I'm going to go for it, but just for the future.
Yes, we talked about it as similar to I think the sign program that exists downtown, and that we would develop next year's budget with that kind of a proposal. What are the funds you want to put into that pot? They recommend you put into that pot, and then run the program, and then put these on consent for review and approval.
And so, Chris, you'll start work on the new budget here in the next couple of months. So I assume that'll be an element, it sounds like. So
yes.
Okay. I imagine you've got broad support for that approach. So very good. Other questions for Mehmet? I don't see any. Or the developer or anybody else want to say anything about the project? Don't no obligation, but up to you. Just make it quick, because you can only go downhill, put it that way. So.
Mayor Cole, council members, just thank you for considering this project.
Oh, man, that's good. Leave it to a lawyer to be, Councilmember Shaw.
Thanks. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion for approval. I move to conditionally approve tax increment financing assistance from the Downtown Urban Renewal TIF District for Frontier Law Firm for building facade improvements at 2923 Montana Avenue, up to $14,194.64 as recommended by the DBP board.
We'll give it to the person whose district it is, or ward. Very good. Thank you. Made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, if in favor of the motion for approval, item number 2, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Good luck. Tony, item number 3, would you please read item number 3?
Resolution approving the FY 2027 through FY 2031 capital improvement plan. Staff recommends approval.
Andy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm here to present the 2027 to 2031 capital improvement plan. If you got the copy off the staff memo, you have the most current version. If you're unsure, the title page should say proposed 11/17/2025. Then you know you're looking at the correct document. So the capital improvement plan, just as a reminder for the public, it's a 5-year plan for all capital projects at the city. Identifies city infrastructure needs, facility needs, and prioritizes high impact projects really through this process. This year's CIP is 128 projects totaling $502 million, $103 million for the first year, which will roll into the next year's budget. The CIP does assume future increases in utility rate assessments. New this year is a future projects list that includes projects with not necessarily identified funding sources or outside the 5-year window. If you wanted to add a gondola from the rims to downtown, I put a rendering there for you. It's not in the future projects list or 5-year plan yet. This year, we've been in front of Budget and Finance Committee, City Council work sessions. It only gets better from here. We have gotten input from you folks and made those adjustments. Obviously, then tonight here for for plan adoption. I promise that's my last AI generated video.
Very cool.
For tonight. So just so you're up to date on what changes have been made. Originally, we came to you in October, presented the proposed CIP, had those work sessions. You guys directed some changes. Fifth Avenue corridor and 21st Street underpass improvements are removed from the 5-year plan. They are added on the future projects list. Evidence facility funding source was changed from South TIF to the Public Safety Fund. And then the Cottonwood Park project, it was on the future projects list. It is still on there, but the funding for that is more closely aligned with phase 1 costs than originally. I think it was just in there at what was available for cash in lieu. You guys had asked, well, we included this year, estimated rate increases that the CIP was built upon. Just not that you're setting rates, you're not approving these rates, but understanding that future councils, when they make decisions about rate setting and how the CIP plays in with that, and potential decisions that may need to be made if rates aren't increased in the future, adjustments in the CIP likely would need to occur. I would reiterate, these are estimates only at this point. Rate studies will be conducted to further refine those in the future. I gave this to you, was that last work session? At one of the work sessions. This was those rates and the impact on the average homeowner. Again, I believe this was emailed to you as well in the last presentation, so you should have that. I just wanted to have that available for you again. Finally, a reminder, the CIP is available online along with additional information that you might find helpful or the public may find helpful. Specifically, there's an interactive map where you can see where these projects are identified and get more information. There's an Excel document with all the projects listed and by calendar year, if that's how you would prefer to view it. The current adopted CIP is on there, as well as the proposed version. And there is a project request form that I get about one every 2 or 3 years from citizens who can submit them if they would like. And Mayor, with that, I will get out of the presentation and open up the proposed plan in case there are things that we need to refer to. But I will turn it over to you to consider any amendments and vote them up and down and then approve the plan.
Very good. Thank you, Andy. Council, we'll open up for questions. And after that, typically the way the process has worked, and you're not bound by this, I'm just talking about typically there's been sort of a, call it a base motion for approval, and then we receive individual motions for amendments to that, if that is what you would like to do. But we can proceed how you'd like, but let's at least start with questions for Andy, Councilmember Kennedy, and Councilmember Boyette.
Andy, I'm looking at the services, water, wastewater, storm, solid waste, and street maintenance. Could pull that up.
Are you in the PDF?
No, I'm on the line with the out of our packet. But if you would, can you pull it up so it's up here?
The staff memo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I sure can.
Since this is a planning document, I have some real concerns because as you plan for the next year and the year after and the year after, there may be some changes. And then we hear staff say, well, you've already approved of this. So what's going to happen is we've already designated dollars for it. So the question I have for you, Andy, is the water is too high at 7.5. I'd like to see it cut in half. The wastewater, the storm can come down. The solid waste can come down in the street maintenance. And I just want to say this because I will make a motion in the future to cut it in half and extend the length of time to be able to do these projects. This is a lot of increase for a lot of homeowners. And I think we need to be very much aware of the people paying the fees and to be able to cut these down. I know that as people have planned out, they wanted to get it in a certain timeline. But I think the longer you expend it out, it's easier for people to be able to afford it. So I'm bringing it up tonight because even though this does not come up until next year, people are going to be planning. So I'm going to ask you the question, do we make the motion to make the decreases on this or keep you aware of that so next year you don't plan it all and assume that you're going to get all this money?
I'll take the first crack at it, and then Andy, please join in. The most direct way to handle it, Councilmember Kennedy, would be to make cuts to the planned capital investments. You are correct. This is a planning document. What we're showing that we haven't shown in the past is what we estimate the rate increases necessary to fund the capital side of it. And what I hear you saying as a policymaker is, look, I'm not comfortable raising rates to that level. I'm comfortable with about half of that.
I am.
So candidly, I would follow if I were in your seat, I would follow that with a motion to make reductions in the planned expenditures in each of the area to half. That way you've got a plan that's consistent with what you anticipate supporting on the rate side.
Thank you. Then
let's just ask our finance director. I don't know that he'll disagree with his boss, but on the chance he has any.
The motion.
Okay, well, we'll come back to recognize
You're
you
not
here.
letting me do it.
Well, but Andy, anything you want to add?
Only maybe for Councilmember Kennedy's benefit. This was a slide from one of the work sessions that I think tried to approximate what 1% per year would be. So if you were going to try to make a reduction of, for example, where are we at, water, of 1%, we would need to make a reduction in capital of about $380,000 per percent. So I just wanted to have that available. Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
I do understand that, and I do understand it may push out a few years, but I'm trying to make it so it's affordable to a lot of people, especially a lot of people in my district. So I would make a motion that we look at the water, the wastewater, the solid waste, the street maintenance, and then to cut in half, and the storm to cut down to 8%. That would be my motion.
I'll second that, but we don't have an underlying motion unless.
I was going to call point
True.
of
So
order.
my interpretation is that this is a motion to change the draft.
Okay. I'll second that.
Is my interpretation. So to be clear, these are by, can you be specific by the page of the CIP and the number in the CIP that you would change? I think I understand the concept, but we have a specific document in front of us. So is there a way to be more specific? Because there are maybe dozens of impacted lines on the CIP.
Mayor, this would be starting in fiscal 27. So I would say that I would like to see the water rate at 7.5 to be down to 3.2. The wastewater would be 2.5. The stormwater, 8%. The solid waste would be 3.5. And the street maintenance would be 3.5. And out of that, then the change would be in the CIP or 27 would decrease by that amount and push some of those projects into 28 and 29.
And Councilor McGarry, just to be clear for the benefit of the public, we're not approving rates. Anything we do doesn't have any impact on rates. We're talking about what our capital plan looks like. So, but you're setting the premise of assuming less money.
If this happens on this draft, then staff is not going to say, well, you didn't make any changes this year, and we weren't aware of it. So we assumed that in 27, this is what we're planning on. I just want everyone aware that I would like to see these reductions when we go back and finally approve next year.
So Councilor McGarry, again, I understand the concept, but on the screen that's ahead of us, for example, we've got 8 wastewater projects. We're talking about assuming a reduction in revenue. How does that impact each of these 8 projects, for example, proportionately, whatever that?
You know, Mayor, the new Public Works Director is going to have to figure that one out.
Okay, so the motion is to?
Mayor, the motion is to lower these in half except for the stormwater to 8%.
Again, and Councilor McKinney, I'm going to rule that motion out of order because we are not changing rates here tonight. We're talking about a plan of money. Now, it makes sense if we don't have the money, we want to change the plan, but we're not doing anything about rates. We could direct staff to change the plan proportionate to the 50% reduction that you anticipate in rates, if that's what the goal is.
If you would like me to make the motion that would say that I instruct staff to make these changes on water, wastewater, storm, solid waste, and street maintenance with the direction that we had so they can go back through fiscal year 27 so they don't anticipate that they're going to have 7.5% and 5% and 13%, 7% and 7% increases. I just want the staff aware of that. I know this is a draft, Mayor, but by next year, what's going to happen is there are going to be departments and people anticipating that there's this money. And I want to make sure loud and clear now that we will listen to the taxpayers and make that reduction next year. So that's why I'm bringing it up today. So if the motion is to instruct staff to make those changes in this draft, so, and make the recommendations on 27, 28, 29, and 30 in the future. That's my motion.
Okay, and that makes sense to me. Direct staff to change the draft according to those expectations of reduced income on the percentages mentioned by Councilmember Kennedy, and then come back with the staff's recommendations of those revisions. If that, I've stated that approximately. Is there a second to that motion?
And that's actually the thought I was seconding, is something like
Okay.
that. So,
So with
just to
that
clarify, it's not coming back for approval. Is that the case? You expect that to come back and then we approve that next one? Okay, so the whole public works section it needs to come back.
Yes,
Okay,
Councilman Neese, the reason for this is this is a draft. This will go into next year, and then we will have to vote on these rates next year. I just want the anticipation that we're not going to look at these rates to be what is in front of us today, but the staff is fully aware that there will be a reduction and they'll have to move some of these projects out a little farther.
Very good. And just to clarify for the benefit of the public, this is currently a draft. That's absolutely correct. The recommendation of staff is to approve it tonight so that it is not a draft, but this, of course, would affect at least that component, and that would remain in draft form if the motion prevails. Anything further, Councilmember Neese, before I?
So this motion is only addressing the public works section of the draft. We can still approve the rest of the draft tonight.
That's my understanding, although there is no motion on the floor to that effect. This is
okay. That sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay. We recognize hands down here, and then Councilmembers Rupsis, Boyette, and Shaw.
I'm sorry, Mayor, you just confused me. You said there's no motion on the floor?
No, I said there's no motion to approve the remainder of the plan. I'm just clarifying, this is only pulling out that portion of the public works element.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to ask staff, do you think like by next week, we'll have something ready to come back with all the public works projects over the next 5 years scaled back to meet that kind of inflationary target or growth target over the next 5 years? Are we going to be prepared to see that next week, or are we going to be punting this to the next council, who is really just trying to find their seats at this point?
Yeah, you.
Yeah,
Andy
we'll be back.
promises a lot on my behalf. This is why I stepped up here. So I want to be clear. We were asked to look at what it would take to manage our programs to a level of service that we talked about. And then we were asked what those rates would be. There is no one in Public Works that thinks these rates are going to be what we present or what would be approved. It was simply to show the types of projects, the amount of projects that need to get done at the pace that needs to get done to keep up with our system responsibly. So that's what this was. The idea also was during rate making this last year, we had a lot of options of, if you need to reduce 500,000, what does that look like? So we wanted to show all this so that when we do have those rate conversations, we have projects here. We have discussions that we can have. That's why we put it in here. We can take that out. I think we had a lot of conversations last time that took quite a bit of time with Budget and Finance Committee saying, do we want to lower extensions? Do we want to not do as much replacement? I'm not sure that, I can take a stab at this. We gave the numbers. We said this much per percent. We can do that, but it'll be outside of this conversation. Obviously, we'll just do it and bring it to you. I think the better time to have that is during rate making.
I guess I'm confused by that.
Okay.
Is the plan as presented in this draft what you think you're actually going to use to plan the projects and the costs that those will take? Or are you saying that if we do these will be what we're estimating the rate increases, so you, council, give us some direction on how to scale this back to hit whatever your targets?
Yep. So this year at Budget and Finance, a lot of you may remember that we were asked to bring a couple of different percentages. And I anticipate that this would be a very similar thing where we bring something that says, okay, if we want to have this level of service, this maintenance frequency, get to this replacement frequency, this is the number it looks like. However, if we're shooting for half of that, then this is what that looks like. So we would bring multiple ones like we did this year.
So I guess the question is, do you want to have this conversation during the CIP process or during the budget process 4 months from now?
We had anticipated it during the budget process because I think there's a lot more discussion time during budget and finance. But again, this is a plan. I think it's important that everybody sees that this is what it will take to maintain our system. And I think that's important to know. We can certainly reduce it if we want. We could do a futures project thing like we're doing on some of the transportation ones. Or we could leave it there knowing that when we come, we'll be asked to do a half rate. I would like to remind you that water and sewer are already approved for this year. So,
And Debbie, it's Christmas season, so I want to put this in terms that I can understand. The CIP represents your list for Santa. Yes, you're nodding. You know you don't get everything from Santa.
Right.
And you're being realistic about that, and that realism will hit in the budget process. With the exception of, what'd you say, water and sewer that were already approved.
right. And I would say this is the first time we've done this, and it was in a response to the conversations we had last year, where I think council felt like we didn't bring enough of the big picture, and there was more request to kind of see what all was out there. So this was kind of a response to last year's conversations.
Okay, thank you. Chris, Councilmember Boyette? Councilmember
So,
Absalom, you had your hand up?
I would add kind of on the practical side, and I know some of you get kind of tired of me saying it this way, but it's something I can understand. And I think the general public can. I recognize these rate adjustments are significant. It's also the case that a pipe won't last 150 years. And we know that every dollar we invest in street maintenance saves $5 in reconstruction. So ultimately, the tough decisions are ultimately, what do you guys decide you want that investment level to be? How do you want to phase to get to that ultimate point? And so tonight, I guess I just want to steer away from the idea that this is a Christmas list. I think it's fairly simple. If you want to have the rate adjustment be half of this, I would suggest you be clear about which projects you take off the list. And they're just going to get pushed to further years. I mean, none of these projects are dream projects for future development. They're all predominantly maintenance or reconstruction of the transportation system or the pipes under the ground. So.
Okay, thank you. I think I'd recognize Councilor Boyette, Councilor Aspenlider.
So
And I'm sorry, I'd recognize Councilmember Shaw long ago. Go ahead.
All right, I guess I was going to just add my comment that I think this conversation is more appropriate when we're setting rates. Personally, I find it difficult to vote on, we're cutting an arbitrary amount, but I don't know what projects are going to be moved. And that is the important piece to me, is I want to know how the rates tie to the project. So I really liked what Public Works brought this last year of kind of some different levels that we were able to look at. I thought that worked really well. I'd like to see that continue. I'm very confused about any direction we would give to just cut a certain percent, even though I understand the goal and support the goal of, well, excuse me.
Councilor Gay, that's not necessary, but go ahead. Are you, yeah. Councilor Bashar, were you completed?
All of which is to say that I think we're getting a little cart in front of the horse, and I would definitely need to know which projects we're talking about before I could give direction to staff. So for that reason, I think I'm a no on this, but I think it's a worthwhile conversation to have when we're actually setting the rates.
Very good, Councilor Boyette.
I thought the Budget Committee worked this out. Is there a change in the Budget Committee's opinion on what, and why didn't we know about this before tonight? My thought is that's what was your position, is to figure this out.
And Councilor Kenny, if we're part of that
Councilman Boyette, these rates went out to a letter to taxpayers. We didn't look at these until later on. And at the Budget Committee, yes, that happened. And I received these in an email a while back. And so what I'm saying is, before we get into next year and before anyone assumes that all these projects are going to go forward, I want to make sure they understand there will be a vote on the reduction of some of these rates, and so the staff can prepare accordingly. Or you can delay the inevitable, and then you're going to have staff say, well, we prepared all these things for these rates, and you're not approving them. So I'm just giving a beginning year to let you know that we'd like to go forward and reduce these in a draft form. So as we go through and we finally vote next year on what those rates will be, then the staff has some acknowledgement. I just don't want staff to come back and say, well, we planned on all these projects and we have all these people lined up and you're not going to do them. And I don't want to be put in that corner.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Asplander, and then Councilor Gulick, you're head of the Budget Committee, so I don't know if you later want to comment on that. Councilmember Neese after that. Councilor Asplander?
Yeah, I think we made significant improvements in the way that we approached this with Public Works this last year. And that included coming with a suite of options in which we looked at the rates at the time of rate setting, understanding what was in the CIP. And I think that worked really well. And I think that is the best path forward. Now, when we talked about that last year, and I'm 100% supportive with where Councilman Kennedy is, and I'm going to struggle to support what these rate increases are shown to support this CIP. I've made no bones about that, and that's no secret to anybody. I am not interested in spending 6 hours tonight and next week to argue about projects, what should or should not go, what could or could not stay. I mean, we spent 2 months going through that, which was the appropriate amount of time in budget and finance to talk about the merits of these projects, how Public Works going to bear these things out. And I think we have the opportunity to do that when we talk about rates and set rates with the new Budget and Finance Committee here in the coming months. I'm not going to support the motion for that. I think the point is to staff that we are going to have that conversation, and the expectation is that we're going to have those suite of options with ranges of where these rates are going to lie, and we're going to make the same decisions based on the information presented by staff. Like that's how this worked, and it worked well last time. And not everybody got what they wanted, but that was an efficient and effective way to do it. And I think it allowed us to digest all this information. Doing it tonight or doing it over the next week, we're going to make bad decisions, and we're going to put ourselves in a place that we got to box our way out of again. So I'm with Councilman Kennedy in the intent, in the passion of the motion. I'm gonna oppose it tonight because that's my expectation, is that we're going to do this through rate, and that's where I think we should.
Very good. Councilor Gillick, do you want to comment on anyway? And Councilor Bernice, and then I suggest, Councilor, we move to a vote soon.
So I was not at the the Budget and Finance Committee meeting in which this part of the CIP was discussed. So I'm afraid I can't speak to that. I think maintenance is critical. Maintaining our systems. I think it's actually penny wise, pound foolish if we don't maintain our systems. But I think there is room for potentially reducing the scope those are large percentages that we're looking at. But just to give a counterpoint on stormwater is what I'm most familiar with. I think we are looking out for the public's interest and their investment in the systems when we are doing proactive work and not just reactive work. We pay a lot more for reactive work than proactive. So for instance, I think it was in June of 22, we had a stormwater incident that blew out a culvert in Gable Road.
that took up our whole budget for stormwater that year because it was rebuilding the whole street. It wasn't just a matter of replacing a culvert or something like that. So just there's some examples. We're not going to be able to deal with that tonight. I think what Councilmember Aspenleiter said, I think our system did work pretty well last year. For that reason, I think I will also oppose this motion.
Okay, very good. Councilor Reese, are you ready? Did you have something further or ready to vote?
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the motion as well. As I think it's been said here that, I mean, the CIP is a plan document. It's not a Christmas list. I think, Mayor, there's wishes on there. They hope to get it because we see things when it comes to budget where things have been moved forward or backwards, and it's a fluid document, but it's a planning document. And so the plan at this point in time is it's too aggressive. And what Councilmember Kennedy is, and I support on this, is to tone it down a little bit and bring it back to the council for approval. This can still be increased during the budget time if projects come forward. And so those topics that you're talking about bringing or talking about in budget time, that can still be done during the budget period. But this is at least setting the expectation to staff. Don't bring us a bunch of projects because I've been on council now 7 years, and if it's on CIP, it's going to be presented to us in the budget. And so that means we're going to have to take a lot of time to actually cut out of the budget instead of having staff bring this back to us because they're the experts, they're the professionals, bring this back to us with what they expect the vision is if they do a 3.5% increase or an 8% increase. What can you get done over this period of time? And then that is the plan. Again, that can be modified. But that's the plan because they're the ones who can best come up with that with their priorities, not the council at this time because it's just a plan document. And so I'd urge you to support this so that it does set the expectation for the budget cycle that it's going to be less of a increase, and then let's address those specific issues at the time of the budget. Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion on the motion? I guess I would have been more inclined to vote for this if I had seen it at the first work session. This has been, I'm concerned about the process. This is kind of a nuclear bomb that in my view should have been dropped a month ago when the rates were first public and this came out. But we'll go ahead and vote. I think the motion hopefully is clear to remove from the draft CIP the public works portion that's dependent upon those rate increases. And then we would proceed with everything else if the motion passes. So if in favor of the motion made by Councilmember Kennedy, seconded by Councilmember Neese, please say aye.
Aye.
Voting in favor, Councilmembers Kennedy, Neese, and Rogers, and Owen. If voting in opposition, please say nay. Nay, all other council members. So the motion fails. Councilmembers Kennedy, Neese, Rogers, Owen in favor, all other council members voting in opposition. So back to where we started, which were questions for Andy about his presentation or underlying motion. Councilmember Aspenleiter.
I'll make an underlying motion so that we can start the process. So let me get back to my Andy's directions. I move to approve the FY27 through FY31 capital improvements plan as recommended by staff.
Very good. Councilmember Boyette indicates a second. And questions for Andy, either by Councilmember Aspenleiter? Go ahead.
I want to make a motion to make a modification to the plan.
Okay. Well, that's up to you, and we'll have an opportunity for questions. I don't know if anybody had any questions, but I don't want to. I'm not seeing anybody jumping at questions, so go ahead. If Councilmember Aspenleiter would be okay to entertain some questions first. Okay.
I just have one quick question for Andy on the 25th Street Bridge. Or maybe it's Wyeth if he's here, but I guess I have kind of lost track of this project. I didn't realize that it was still kind of moving forward, and it's only 3 years out. But I'm looking through the spreadsheets just trying to make sure I understand the funding source for this. It's not listed as transportation alternatives. It's listed as potential grant funds. Is that accurate?
Yeah, this one I believe if it's classified correctly, and I think Wyeth may be on Zoom. He was earlier.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. But Yeah, this one's just potential grant funding. There's no specific grant identified. I believe we did pursue a grant for it a couple years ago. We were unsuccessful. I don't know if Wyeth has more he wants to add to that.
I guess, Wyeth, I'd just jump in. It just surprised me to see it only 3 years out without a funding source.
Yeah, Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council, thanks for the opportunity. So yeah, we have that. We pushed it out further. We did, as Director Zeller mentioned, we did pursue a grant in the last 2 years ago, about a federal grant that fit really well with this project. When we had our grant coordinator on staff, he assisted us with putting that together. We didn't receive it, but it was a good match. And so I think what we were anticipating, and obviously, the federal grant climate is pretty unpredictable right now, but was, to continue to look for matches like that, because that one was a good fit for that project. But yeah, that's why it's still there. And it is several years out, because that would be the type of approach we would take again with finding the right fit.
Okay. Councilor Boyette?
So Andy, for the sake of the people in the audience, we have a lot of things that have moved to the future CIP project over 5 years. Does that mean we'll never look at those again? Does that mean that if we trip over some money, we won't bring them back in? And if we do, how much trouble is it to move it from the future CIP to the current CIP? Can we do that in a reasonable amount of time if we trip over some money?
Mayor and Councilmember Boyette, I envision the items on the future CIP projects primarily consisting of those that are planned, probably may even have a funding source, but are beyond 5 years from construction. So not just make-believe projects. There would also be projects on there that don't have identified funding sources and are outside of that 10-year plan. I think when I think of those, I would assume that we would pursue, or if grant funding came along and there was something there that met that criteria, it'd come to before council. Do you guys want to pursue this? That, and then for getting it into the 5-year CIP, obviously every year you'd have that opportunity at the CIP process. We traditionally don't amend the CIP during the year, but you could technically if there was a need to, but I don't know what that need would be. Yeah.
Okay. Now, Councilor Aslar.
Just a general comment, and then I'll make a motion to make some amendments. Andy and I talked about this, and I thought as we talked about it through the 2 work sessions, one of the things we were going to do was add a 6th column. And I understand that's hard to do in like all the different variations of how you show these projects by funding source, by so on and so forth, whatever, showing those projects that are in the out years. What I was hoping we were going to see was an out years column or a greater than 2031 column in the department tables. That's probably the easiest place to do that. And then as it cascades out into by fund, by whatever, all the 6 different ways that you've split this out for us, which is great. As a spreadsheet guy, I appreciate that. But in the department budgets, I think it's the easiest and probably the most appropriate place to put a 6th column in there between FY31 and the total. And I'm not going to make a motion to do that this year, but I hope, can you please do that next year?
I will work to do that, yes.
To locate those projects that we're kicking out into the future years. It's easier at that point for us to see them without going to the very end of the document. I think for people looking at projects, grant funding, so on and so forth, they're identified in the department, but in the department plan, it was our compromise, I thought, as a council to add that column. And that was the intent of this body. I don't want to make motions to try to modify this and bring it all back. Please just do it, would be my comment. So that when we go there next year, that in the department budgets, those things that are identified in your future year tables and pages below have those projects identified in a greater than FY32 would be next year's.
Right.
So please make that adjustment for us next year. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to put the 25th Street Bridge, and I'm looking at the transportation projects under the planning department specifically. So my motion is going to encompass a couple, and then I'd like to speak to my motion if there's a second. Move the 25th Street Bridge, the Alkali Creek Trail connection, the Downtown Heights Trails connection, the trail corridor from King Avenue West to Trans-Tech Center, and Yellow Jacket Trail from their proposed years to the proposed out years, and remove the TA and other funding sources outside of those that are committed outside of TA, urban, and CMAQ dollars.
Okay, that's a lot of pieces, but okay. And Councilmember Kennedy makes the second. Do you want to speak to your motion?
Yeah, so Councilman Rups has asked which ones are staying. So the ones that would stay would be Aronson to Annandale, down to
and Councilmember Aspenlighter.
This is the
okay.
table.
This is what's now up on our
This
screen.
is the table
Thank you very much.
on
Okay.
on page 8. So the projects that would stay would remain as proposed in the same locations are Aronson to Annandale, downtown BBWA, corridor trail, on-street facilities, Highway 3 underpass. Those are the 3 that would stay. My purpose in doing this is those 3 projects all, you could argue, have some safe routes to schools components and provide some safe routes to schools benefits. Much to some's opinion, I'm not against all parks and I'm not against all trails. I mean, some of the best conversations I've had are actually with Mr. Chandra, who has come to my office, I think, twice to talk about Yellow Jacket Trail. And we've had a great conversation about that. And I appreciate and understand his passion. And I hope at some point we can get that done. Today is not that day from my perspective. So what I'm trying to do here is to try to thread a needle, acknowledging that there are some trails that can be done that provide some safe routes to schools benefits, while also acknowledging, hey, we have spent a lot of money in the last 5 years. We've built over 10 miles, close to 12 miles of trails in the last 5 years. When you look at the Beltway, the Skyway Drive, you add in what we're going to build with Stagecoach Trail, with the trail up on the rims, plus some of the stuff that we've done down at Riverfront Park. We have spent a lot of money. In that same amount of time, we've spent very little money on safe routes to schools. And we have TA dollars that can help us get through at least phase 1 over the next couple of years. Now, mind you, the TA dollars are not available because they're already allocated. They're not available even in this budget until FY29. So what I'm asking is for some reasoning with this community to say, hey, can we find a balance, please, in supporting and pumping up the execution of our safe routes to schools to keep our kids safe and getting these projects done while we're still leaving some trails projects on the list. And those trails projects provide not just the trails benefit, but they also provide a safe routes to schools benefit. And that's what I'm asking. And what I'd ask of TrailNet is, meet me somewhere in the middle, please. Somewhere in the middle. There are a multitude of projects identified in those safe routes to schools plan. Find them. Let's put them on the list. I will happily support those. But Yellow Jacket Trail isn't that. The King Avenue West to Trans-Tech Center isn't that. The Alkali Creek Trail connection isn't that. Help meet me in the middle somewhere. I'm trying to be reasonable here without yanking everything and just asking you to meet me in the middle somewhere so that we can provide some safe routes to schools projects for this community, which desperately wants them. If you go to the same task forces that I go to on the West End, People are clamoring not for trails, they're clamoring for safe routes to schools projects to get completed in this community. That's the number one thing that I hear when I talk to people that I talk to. So that's my proposal. That's what I'm trying to accomplish here. And I'm not trying to kick these completely off the plan.
Okay, further discussion now on the motion, Councilmember Kennedy and Councilmember Shaw.
Councilman Aspenlander, as I look at the urban funds and the congestion mitigation air quality, that means we will take, move the Yellow Jacket Trail to year 6 out of there, but that will give the council in the future an opportunity to use any urban funds that may come for a project that the council decides to fund. I never had an opportunity to, I don't think in fiscal year 2030 for both CMAC and urban funds, any of us had the opportunity to vote to put that in there. So I appreciate your motion so we have that opportunity to allocate urban and CMAC funding in the future. And all it's doing is taking it out, and in the future, if a future board wants to allocate those dollars to a specific project, they can do that. But I think that was a place saver in there, but it never was approved by the board. Council, thank you.
Very good, Councilmember Shaw. And then I'm gonna have a question for whoever our planning department representative is, or maybe Debbie, or maybe Andy.
Director Friday's raising his hand, but I have on Zoom. I have a
I
question for him though, actually. So
yeah.
I don't know, Wyatt, if you want to go first, or I can hit you with my question, which is I appreciate the spirit of the collaboration and the trying to meet in middle ground. I think that's really important. I'm glad to hear that. My concern is is there a distinction when you're going out for a grant for one of these things between this 1 to 5 years and this 6+ year category that we're talking about? Is when you're writing a grant application, will that make a difference?
Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council, that's a really good question. I think one of the things that the way the language has been written in this future projects list sort of description, and the mayor had brought this up earlier today, kind of that it's a lesser, that the staff won't spend time on it. I think that's very challenging because I think, and I think Director Zeller described it pretty well, which is if we found a grant that fit one of these projects like really well, like the one I described for 25th Street Bridge that we didn't get, but we applied for, if we found one of those, we would talk obviously internally with staff. If it impacted parks, we'd talk to parks, et cetera, and then we would come to you if it's in the future projects list or if it's in, on the CIP and say, here it is, and here's this match, and we're recommending we go forward if it looks like a really good fit. And then you would have to make that decision. So I think from my perspective, we're going to treat it pretty similarly as long as it's in the CIP somewhere, because to pass up those opportunities and not come and tell you and give you that opportunity to make a decision would, I wouldn't be doing my job. So I think we're going to look at it very similarly from that perspective, but it is going to be something that would come to you just like grants would come to you anyway. I mean, that has to happen regardless. And that's how we'd approach it.
So if I could follow up. So if this distinction is important for council because we're, trying to get our heads around these different money sources, I just don't want to lose sight of these projects. And I don't think that's what's being advocated for. I just want to make sure that there isn't some, distinction of you go out for a federal grant, and if it's not in the first 5 years, forget it. That's my concern.
Yeah, no, I think Councilmember Shaw and Mayor and Council, I understand. And I think that's, like I said, I think that's if there's a different thought process that the council's having, I don't know how else we would, if there's something in either the 5 year or that 6, out year, at this point, we would still, if we saw something that was a good idea to recommend to you, we would still do that. And I maybe I'll get different direction, but that's the way right now I think we would approach it.
Hey, Wyeth, while we've got you signed up there, I'm looking at fiscal years 27 and 28. We're talking $100,000 in those 2 years. No dollars in fiscal year 28 and 100,000 between 3 projects in 27. I guess those are just planning dollars. All the construction money is out in multiple years. Is that the way to interpret that $100,000, those 3 projects?
Yeah, Mayor, thank you, Mayor and Council, and that's why I raised my hand. I wanted to draw your attention to those. We're actually doing feasibility work on those 3 projects that you see, the 30,000, 40,000, and 30,000. We're doing those in this current fiscal year work program through the MPO. And we're doing that because through multiple work sessions and actual action by this council over the summer, and when we developed the work program, we were directed to, those were included because we were directed to do that. In fact, the Aronson to Annandale project was one that was added by the council in the one that goes under the power lines there and as a future pedestrian connection. And so this is feasibility work that we then were directed to conduct. So we're actually spending those dollars in the fiscal year that we're in, going into with 27, because that's
Mayor, if I can clarify my counsel, that'd probably answer a lot of these.
Okay, if you're done, Wyeth, Councilor Absalom?
Yep, just want to, yep, thanks.
You know, and to clarify, what I'm talking about is the construction dollars. So I'm not proposing to stop the feasibility studies that are planned for fiscal 27, particularly on Aronson to Annandale, because that's one that I, in my motion, kept in the plan. But as it relates to the Alkali Creek Trail connection and the Downtown Heights Trail connection, my motion was not to eliminate the planning. It was to take those projects out of the fiscal 29 and fiscal 30 budgets, the construction dollars. So just so that we're clear, stopping the planning was not my intent.
Okay, then we should ask the party, Councilmember Kennedy, you made the second. We'll call that a friendly amendment because I don't think that was specified in the original motion. Is that consistent with your second? In other words, no change fiscal year 27 in this list of transportation projects, 27 or 28.
That's fine.
Okay, that clarification. Now, further discussion on the motion. Councilmember Gulick.
Yeah, I appreciate that there's some interest in meeting somewhere. I mean, where we meet is probably different points. I hear from a lot of constituents that, like, you know, I have my kids or grandkids. I want them to be able to come to a play back to Billings, but they aren't as interested. As a small business owner, trying to attract and retain really quality staff, quality of life is really important. We have had some good wins in the past few years with trails. That was after a 10-year drought as well. During those past few years, we've also made some good progress with the Safe Routes to School program. I think we can do both. I also know that major employers are also really counting on us to be able to be paying attention to quality of life. I hear frequently from medical administrators that they have a very difficult time attracting talent here. It's not just the doctors and nurses, but it's their spouses. If we want to be able to be served by quality people in this community, we need to be able to attract them. So I won't be supporting the motion, but I do support the interest in moving somewhere close to the middle. I guess the other thing is I don't see the harm in keeping them on the CIP, even if they don't have identified funding sources yet in some cases.
Very good. Further discussion on the motion, Councilmember Nice.
Thank you, Mayor. I will support this motion. Thank you for bringing this because this is something that I have wanted to see for a long time, is to really focus on safe routes to school. Yes, we've done a better job or good job in progressing on safe routes to school, but our kids are important. If one kid gets hurt because our routes to school are not safe, that's too many. And so I think it's very important that we look at the studies we've done on what the safe routes to school and get it complete. And so my focus is on to make sure that this is not just the start of moving safe routes to school, but to really get this going forward in the years to come to complete that. And I appreciate you keeping the trail portion of it in there, because there are some trails that kids use for safe routes to school. And I think that's very, very important. And that also you're not eliminating the fact that these things can stay on the out years, because if funding happens to come along, we can bring them off of the CIP and get them done. And so funding doesn't have to stop on these. Grant writing doesn't have to stop on these. They're still available. If a lot of support from the community comes for some of these, the ones that are not safe routes to school, but we have the dollars here in the transportation funds. We need to really dedicate those to safe routes to school. So I will wholly support this, and I hope everyone else does, because we want to keep our kids safe and on the streets and the sidewalks and the trails that we build so they can go to school. Thank you.
Very good. Further discussion before we proceed to a vote, Councilmember Ripson?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm obviously not going to support this. We dedicate, throughout the course of this 5 years, $700,000 a year to safe routes to school programs. It's not like we're doing nothing. And in fact, in the first 2 years of the CIP, we're not taking anything off, and we're not adding additional safe routes to school dollars. So in effect, this is just a political show. We're not actually changing anything that's going to matter here tonight. If it were just to move the 25th Street Bridge off, I can see that. That's something that's been, pushed forever. Doesn't have any kind of, wishful thinking thing on the horizon to help fund it. But yes, our kids getting to school safely is critically important. But we have people of all ages in the community, and it's also important for people to be able to work safely, or to visit their family safely, or to recreate safely. These are not things that have to be mutually exclusive. And this approach of saying that we're only going to use transportation alternative dollars for safe routes to school is just short-sighted. We have to manage a portfolio of different projects. I appreciate that they're just moving on to the 6+ years, so they're not off. And hopefully a future council will think differently and pull them back on and allow us to prioritize things other than just that one particular type of project. But again, we're not doing anything here tonight that's going to change the next 2 years or certainly FY27. So I don't know, maybe we feel good about ourselves, but I guess I'm going to lose this vote, so it doesn't much matter.
Andy, would you mind just going to the bottom of that page, so the Public Works Transportation Project section? This is on page 8 for anybody who might be watching and is interested in our CIP. So thank you very much. I'll be voting against it, and it's because I think we've already come to the middle. We don't have to go to the middle. We were already there. This is too broad brush of a approach. Like Councilmember Rips, is happy to think about individual projects, taking them off trail projects, or similarly putting safe routes to school specific projects, making them eligible for grant dollars, or focusing on them when we have specific projects. So this is much broader brush than that. And to me, critical, we don't want the public to lose sight of the fact of what this council has done and staff has done to promote safe routes to school every year, and what we'll continue to do. So the reason I would ask for this screen to come up, I just wanted to point out the sources of money for our Safe Routes to School program in our CIP now. So if you go down the third line, you'll see the annual ADA replacement. That's not specifically a Safe Routes to School project, but it does provide $260,000 year after year after year for replacing the corners that can be prioritized as the city wants to prioritize them, including for Safe Routes to School projects to save significant money. The next one is 3 lines down for math, the annual miscellaneous curb, gutter, and sidewalk program. that specifically is highlighted for Safe Routes to School projects. That's $1,050,000 this year. It'll increase next year. It'll increase the year after that. It'll increase the year after that. That is a Safe Routes to School program. Not 100% of it, but a lot of that dedicated money is there for this purpose. Two down from that is your annual pedestrian crossing. That's only $115,000. But again, that can be prioritized as we see fit for Safe Routes to School projects, and often is. The next project or category is annual SIDs. Of course, those are not specific to Safe Routes to School, but it reminds us that the main way we build sidewalks in this town is by assessing the adjacent landowner. If you have a sidewalk in a newer part of town, you probably paid for that, and that's good. And that's what we can continue to do to build sidewalks, is get the adjacent landowners to make a significant contribution through the SID program. And then lastly is the actual annual Safe Routes to School non-sidewalk project. So intersections, that is the $700,000 that Councilmember Rupsis was referring to. In all due respect to Councilmember Rupsis, he was correct about that, but he missed all of those other categories. And when you add those things together, just the three categories of the $1,050,000, $115,000, and $700,000, you get $1.865 million each year of basically guaranteed money for projects that can be used at least in major part for Safe Routes to School. Over 5 years, that's $9,325,000 virtually guaranteed eligible. By contrast, the trail dollars that we're talking about are hope and a prayer dollars that may or may not ever materialize. So to ask the trails community to give even those dollars up when the Safe Routes to School projects have a dedicated source of money year after year after year, I don't think is meeting in the middle. I think we've already been at the middle or someplace else. And so that's why I'll be voting against the motion. So with that, further discussion before we proceed to a vote. Okay, let's vote. The motion again is Councilmember Aspenleiter's motion. Hopefully it was clear enough. Does anybody need me to restate the motion? No. Okay, so if in favor of Councilmember Aspenleiter's motion, please raise your hand. Voting in favor are Councilmembers Neese, Owen, Rogers, Kennedy, Aspenleiter, Tidswell, and Boyette. If voting in opposition are Councilmembers Shaw, Gulick, Cole, and Rupsis. And that means the motion passes 7-4. So that provides some clarification on the trail components of the transportation projects under the planning department category. There was an underlying motion by Councilmember Aspenleiter for approval. This is then an amendment. So now you have before you the amended underlying motion. Discussion or further amendments. Back to council. Councilmember Owen. No. No, I was going to suggest something, but I can do that later. There's no hurry.
Okay. Andy, I just have a couple questions before I think about an amendment or a motion. I'm curious how we landed on the public safety mill levy dollars as a source of funding for the evidence expansion.
The motion that evening was something
not
wasn't specific.
Yeah.
Well, it was actually general fund or something the finance director recommends. I believe was almost verbatim.
So I'm just allowing you to tell us why you recommend this.
It's ultimately the general fund that will fund this because that provides the substantial portion of funding for police and fire. But because it's a police department asset, I said the public safety fund made more sense.
But specifically, it says a public safety mill levy. We have 3. I'm just wondering which one allows us to make capital investments.
I'm not aware that any of them prohibit capital investment for police and fire related items.
Okay. I feel like the 2021 one was not represented to the public as something that would make capital investments. More so it would be the direct personnel. But
It could be, but
Chris or Gina could feel free to correct me if you think I'm misstating it.
I guess I would say the public safety mill levies, all three of them, do not provide enough for operating police and fire. That's why we have such a substantial portion from the general fund. So you can make it the general fund. It will be the general fund ultimately anyway.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to clarify, just off of memory of what did we specifically have in the two that we did together.
Okay. So, and then Andy, I guess my follow-up is, are we really still at $1.3 million for a gravel lot?
I have no updates on that.
I was sort of hoping we were narrowing that down. That was a conversation in budget, that we were going to bring that back to a realistic number, particularly now, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, particularly now that we're talking about taking this directly at the same set of money that we would need to fund a still unsigned police contract. I'm really nervous about where we're going here. So
I split it into 2 years as the recommended, or the recommendation to you is now split into 2 years. The idea being there would be some design done in year one to really nail down what that cost is in year two. The expectation that it's less than 1.3 million. But I don't have any reason at this point to pick a different number other than your comments. But I wouldn't have an educated guess on that.
Councilor Wood, Councilor Rassler, want to comment on that?
So,
Is that
yes, but I want to do something about this tonight so we can keep having a conversation about what to do. And you might have some thoughts, but to me, $1.3 million out of the police operating budget for a gravel lot is not something I can get on board with, even for planning purposes. So, Mayor, with that, I'm happy to concede my time to Councilmember Aspen later.
okay? And we can come back to this issue.
Says who?
No, not dollars, time.
Oh.
But maybe the lot will be $745 too. I don't know.
It might be before we're done tonight.
Yeah. That's fine. Let's try to address this and then we can talk about a break. Councilor Rappler?
Mr. Mayor and Councilwoman Owen, you asked a great question. We talked about this in budget and finance. We talked about it in the planning. And I guess I would offer to Kevin, like, I'll give you my staff's time for free to get you a number that has a basis in something to build this into a tighter box. And I mean, we'll do that pro bono for nothing so that we can tighten this up. I don't think we can get that done by next week, but I mean, we can get that number, and I'm happy to do it with my staff to come up with a real number, but I can't imagine in a million years that it's going to be $1.3 million for a parking lot.
So on this issue, we do want to deal with it tonight. We're being asked to approve the plan. How would you propose? Do we have an option for how to move ahead?
I think I would respect Councilmember Boyette's suggestion that we take a recess, which I assume was what you were suggesting.
He was, and so we can chew on it over that. Typically, we take a break at 7:30. We're a little bit beyond that. 7:47. Let's come back 7:55-ish. the parking lot issue. Okay, so I think you had a solution that you talked about, right?
Councilmember Owen has
So,
a really exciting announcement.
okay, so I'll recognize you, Councilmember Owen. Okay. Okay, I think we are back on board, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your break. Went to Hawaii during that 7 minutes, probably. But Councilmember Owen, I think you and Andy had a bit of a discussion. And when we left off, we were talking about what to do about the $1.3 million item for the Evidence Center lot. Councilmember Owen, why don't you take us from there?
Great, thanks, Mayor. So I think all the indications appear to be that there is a need to expand this lot. Cases are not moving through our judicial system as fast as we want them to be, so we are having to hold evidence for longer periods of time. But $1.3 million out of the police budget is not something I can support now or at any time in the future. So I'm going to make a motion to, in every place in the CIP where the evidence facility lot expansion is mentioned, to shift all funding to fiscal year 28 and to reduce the total amount to $500,000.
Okay, second by Councilmember Rogers. Again, those items go to fiscal year 28, and the $1.3 million changes to $500,000.
That's correct, Mayor. And this gives us, the Council Budget Committee, time to find a better source of funding, and it gives staff time to get the estimates precise. I do not want to nick even $100,000 out of the police budget for next year. There are simply too many unknowns. So I think this gives us adequate time, keeps it on the planning horizon, gives us time to sort things out, both source of funds and the overall amount, while recognizing that we do critically need this. So that is my motion, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. We'll proceed to a vote if there's no discussion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, if in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Other discussion. Council, I want to raise with you, I put this question in a email this afternoon concerning the language that introduces the future CIP projects list on page 176 of my copy anyway. There are 3 sentences up at the top here, and the third sentence says, quote, "It should be assumed that projects included on this list are not priorities, and as a result are not being focused on by city staff at the current time." I think the intent of that was to give some protection to staff when they're asked to devote significant project or staff time or allocate money, that they can point to this. But it's false, because these are still priorities. They're just not as high of priorities as what's on the CIP. Otherwise, they wouldn't be on this list. So my suggestion, if you agree with that, would be, instead of saying are not priorities, just saying they are not the highest priority. So the words "the highest" would go into this language in the report here on top of the list. I don't know if we need to vote. Do we need to vote on that? I guess I'm happy. Well, let me make that motion. Is there a second? Councilmember Gulick indicates the second. Is there any discussion? Councilmember Shaw.
I just wonder if this would also include language to the phrase "are not being focused on by city staff." I think those two should go together. There should be a slight change there too.
And I'm sorry, state again what your change would be?
The phrase, "these projects are not being focused on by city staff," I think if you're changing it to "on this list are not the highest priorities," then as a result, "are not being focused on by city staff" should change too. Because you're saying they will still be a focus.
I would just eliminate.
Or eliminate it.
Eliminate that.
Or just eliminate it. That's easier.
That I'm happy to eliminate it if that's okay. Then if we'll call that a friendly amendment if it's okay with Councilmember Gulick. Okay, so it's just to say that the projects included on this list are not the highest priorities, period. Councilmember Owen?
Yeah, so Mayor, I just wanted to provide a little context from the Budget Committee conversation to make sure that that's consistent with what Councilmember Shaw was talking about. I think the concern was every year staff have to review cost estimates and they have to, think about narratives. And we wanted to make sure that they didn't have to do that kind of work. And so I think we're still accomplishing that, but I think it's important to put on the record why that sentence was in there, was to give staff the permission to say, don't forget these. But also when we do the CIP every year, you don't have to go refresh everything or prepare summaries or be prepared to answer questions on them. So just as long as we have on the record why that was there and that is not changing, then I'm fine with the friendly amendment.
Okay, I think that's, I see nodding heads. Is there any further discussion before we proceed to a vote? Okay, if the motion is clear, if in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. If opposed, nay. Motion passes unanimously. Other discussion from council before we proceed to a vote on the underlying now amended motion for approval of the CIP. Any further discussion? Gavin's having a heart attack back there in a pleasant sort of way. As good of a heart attack can be, you know. It's okay. Okay, then, Councilmember Neese.
Yeah, Mayor, I'm going to vote against the overall motion. I believe that what's on the CIP will come back as budget. I think this is something that the future council is going to have to adjust heavily unless they're going to pass those higher increases into the residents. There's other areas throughout the CIP. I think it doesn't have, as I mentioned in the work sessions, I don't believe there's a lot of projects coming into the Heights as I look on the maps. And so I generally don't like the overall CIP. I think it's better than what it was before we came in tonight, but I will be voting against it. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any further discussion? Okay, if the motion is clear, we'll proceed to a vote. If in favor of the Councilmember Asseliter's now amended motion for approval of the CIP, please say aye. Aye. If voting in opposition, please say nay.
Nay.
Councilmember Neese voting in opposition, all other council members voting in favor. That concludes item number 3 and brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any public comment on items that were not on our agenda tonight? If so, please come to the podium. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes and tell us your name. No one is coming forward, so we'll close the public comment period. There are no council initiatives, I believe. So thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.